America, the land of dreams, the home of the bold, and the arena for a showdown of giants. In one corner, we have Donald J. Trump, the mogul-turned-president, known for his fiery speeches and unyielding confidence in his deal-making skills. In the other corner stands Walmart, the retail giant, a symbol of American consumerism and the master of low prices. Their battlefield? The tariffs on Chinese goods, a policy that has rippled through the global economy. This isn't just a tale of two powerful forces clashing. It's a narrative about the essence of American capitalism, a story about the fine line between corporate profits, consumer spending, and the quest for economic supremacy. It's a story that will touch every American, whether they know it or not. Hold on tight, because things are about to get intense. President Trump, never one to shy away from confrontation, took aim at Walmart, accusing the retail giant of using tariffs as an excuse to raise prices. They should be cutting their profit margins, he declared, urging Walmart to eat the tariffs and spare American consumers from the financial burden. After all, what's a few $1 billion in profit when you're talking about the economic well-being of the nation, right? Trump's logic, however flawed, was simple. Walmart, with its massive size and influence, could easily absorb the cost of tariffs without passing it on to consumers. At least, that was the narrative he was selling. In his mind, this was a classic Trumpian power play, a demonstration of his ability to bend even the mightiest corporations to his will. But Walmart, a company built on the promise of low prices, wasn't about to become the scapegoat for the administration's trade war. The stage was set for a showdown, a battle of wills that would have far-reaching consequences. Walmart, not one to be bullied, pushed back against Trump's demands. The company, while acknowledging its commitment to affordable prices, made it clear that absorbing the full impact of tariffs was simply not feasible. Their profit margins, they argued, were already razor-thin, and absorbing billions in tariffs would decimate their bottom line. The message was clear. Walmart was not in the business of charity, even if the president himself was demanding it. They were a publicly traded company, beholden to their shareholders, and sacrificing their profits for the sake of a trade war was not a decision they were willing to make. This public spat between the president and one of America's largest employers exposed a fundamental tension at the heart of the tariff debate. Could corporations be expected to prioritize national interests over their bottom line? And who, ultimately, would bear the burden of these tariffs? Businesses, consumers, or both? The tariffs, like a ripple effect, spread through the economy, impacting businesses and consumers alike. Manufacturers faced rising costs for raw materials, forcing them to raise prices or cut corners. Retailers, caught in the crosshairs, had to choose between absorbing the costs, raising prices, or finding alternative suppliers, each option fraught with its own set of challenges. Consumers, the lifeblood of the American economy, found themselves staring down the barrel of rising prices on everyday goods. From clothing and electronics to groceries and cars, the cost of living in Trump's America was steadily climbing, and the tariffs were fanning the flames. The tariffs, initially touted as a way to protect American jobs and industries, were now threatening to undermine the very consumers they were meant to help. The economic pain, it seemed, was being felt far beyond the factories and boardrooms, reaching into the homes and wallets of everyday Americans. President Trump, ever the optimist, remained steadfast in his belief that the tariffs were a necessary evil, like a bitter pill to swallow on the road to economic greatness. The trade deficit would shrink, American manufacturing would be revitalized, and the economy would emerge stronger than ever. At least, that was the plan. He pointed to the stock market's performance and low unemployment rates as proof that his policies were working, dismissing any negative economic indicators as fake news or the work of his political opponents. The tariffs, he assured the American people, were a small price to pay for the long-term benefits they would bring. But critics, including many economists and business leaders, weren't convinced. The tariffs, they argued, were a blunt instrument, a sledgehammer being used to perform surgery. The economy, already showing signs of slowing down, could ill afford such a shock, and the long-term consequences of a trade war remained unclear. Section 6. The Fed on the sidelines. The Federal Reserve, the guardian of the American economy, watched the tariff drama unfold with a mixture of concern and uncertainty. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, while acknowledging the potential benefits of addressing trade imbalances, expressed worry about the tariffs' impact on economic growth and business investment. The Fed, caught between a rock and a hard place, had to weigh the risks of inflation against the need to support economic growth. Cutting interest rates could stimulate the economy, but might also fuel inflation. Raising rates, on the other hand, could choke off growth while doing little to address the underlying issues caused by the tariffs. The central bank's predicament highlighted the delicate balancing act facing policymakers in the age of Trump. The tariffs had introduced a new level of uncertainty into the economic equation, making it difficult to predict the consequences of any policy decision. Section 7. Wall Street's rollercoaster ride. The stock market, a barometer of investor sentiment, reacted to the trade war with characteristic volatility. Positive news about potential trade deals sent stocks soaring, only to plummet again when negotiations hit a snag. The uncertainty surrounding the tariffs had created a climate of fear and speculation, leaving investors guessing at every turn. Businesses, facing uncertainty about future costs and demand, became more cautious about investment and hiring. The tariffs, initially intended to boost American manufacturing, were now having the opposite effect, making businesses hesitant to make long-term commitments. The market's reaction underscored the interconnectedness of the global economy. The tariffs, far from being a bilateral issue between the US and China, had rippled through global supply chains, impacting businesses and investors around the world. Section 8. The future of trade. A foggy crystal ball. The future of US trade relations, particularly with China, remained shrouded in uncertainty. Both sides had dug in their heels, unwilling to back down on key issues like intellectual property protection and forced technology transfer. The trade war, initially envisioned as a short, sharp shock to the system, had morphed into a protracted stalemate with no clear end in sight. The longer the dispute dragged on, the greater the potential for lasting damage to the global economy. Businesses, facing continued uncertainty, might shift their supply chains away from both the US and China, seeking more stable and predictable trading partners. The rules-based trading system, already under strain, could be further weakened, paving the way for a more fragmented and less prosperous global economy. The stakes, in short, were high. The outcome of the trade war would shape the global economic landscape for years to come, and the world watched with bated breath as the two superpowers squared off. Section 9. The final word. A nation divided. The tariff battle between Trump and Walmart was more than just a corporate spat or a policy disagreement. It was a microcosm of a nation deeply divided. On one side were those who believed that Trump's tough stance on trade was necessary to protect American jobs and interests, even if it meant higher prices and economic uncertainty. On the other side were those who argued that the tariffs were a self-inflicted wound, hurting American businesses and consumers while doing little to address the underlying challenges of globalization. The debate over tariffs had become a proxy for a much larger debate about the future of American capitalism, the role of government in the economy, and the very definition of American strength. It was a debate that transcended political parties and economic ideologies, a debate that went to the very heart of what it meant to be an American in the 21st century. As the trade war raged on, one thing was clear: there would be no easy answers, no clear winners or losers. The tariffs, like a storm cloud on the horizon, threatened to cast a long shadow over the American economy, and the consequences would be felt by all. The only question was, how bad would it get?